the return of my friend and yours, one of the most popular guys on this program, Kris Versteeg, 2-time Stanley Cup champion and creator of the KLEVR app. What's up, brother? How we doing?
So my cat is already sitting here. Let me know if he's bugging us too much during this great conversation.
No, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Okay. What kind of cat do you have?
I believe it's a British short hair. I am not a...
you believe. I believe cat. It's a British short hair. I was
a dog guy prior to this, and now all of a sudden I got a cat because I didn't want a 3-year-old for 15 years, you know, so we went with the cat this time.
Yeah. Listen, I like cats. I got a controversial... I'm a way more dogs over cats. Listen, okay? Don't get me wrong. But, you know, I live in the city and I'm busy, and the dog is a commitment. Cat, you can just leave. You just leave.
A dog's a 3-year-old that you can't travel with for 15 years, right?
So I'm not a cat lover in the sense, like I like a cat. A cat chooses you. That's a great feeling. But you know what I do like? I met a Maine Coon. Have you ever met those cats? Have you ever seen those cats?
Are they like little tigers?
No, they're the massive cats with like the lynx ears. Yeah. They rule. I want one of those so bad. But the thing is, I'm a single guy in the city. I don't know how that's going to go over. You know, you bring a lady over and you're the guy who has the 25-pound cat. It just, I don't know. I don't know how that plays. I don't think well.
And that thing will eat you too.
Yeah, oh yeah, the second you die, it's eating your face.
You're gone.
Yeah, it's like, so they actually have studies of this. A dog will wait. A dog will like wait until it's starving before it eats you. A cat is like, I think, you know, when it kind of paws into you a little bit when you're sleeping, I think that's just it checking. I think that's just being like, hey, you live? Or can I eat you yet? Is it time?
If you lost your breath for 30 seconds with a Maine Coon, your legs gone.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so where we got to start this, though, is that you're a curse. You always love blaming Leaf fans. You're like, oh, they got to get up out of their seat. They're not good enough fans. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. And here you are 0-5 at Leaf games and just an actual, you know, black cloud over the organization.
Well, I mean, they'd won 7 in a row.
Yeah.
Haven't been around.
Yeah, I know.
Show up. And, yeah, it wasn't even close either. So 0-5 going to Leaf games this year. I'm a little bit worried the next time I walk in if I'll even be allowed into the building. But talking to you yesterday, you basically said I'm banned.
You're banned for playoffs for sure. You can go to regular season games. And this is the difficult part is I think like your boys, they're Leaf fans now, right? As much as that would hurt you as a Western Canadian deep down because there's a part of you. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's got to hurt you seeing that where They probably, who's their favorite? Mitch Marner?
Well, Marner, Tavares, and Matthews, but my little guy loves Matthews.
Yeah,
okay. And wears his Leaf stuff everywhere. And when my old man came out and he looked at him.
Oh, yeah.
He was rattled.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, man, I loved your post with your dad, bringing him to practice, and you asked him for the advice. Pucks in deep. Great. Love it.
Well, then I brought him on the bench one game, and my kid wasn't playing great, and I told him to take a seat. And my dad's like, no, you're not benching him. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're lucky Grandpa's here on the bench.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Just as if he would have ever done that for you.
Yeah. No, I got fat every game.
That's what I'm saying. You'd have been immediately sit zone. But, okay, so you got to be able to go to games because the boys got to go see their team, you know? Like, that's it. They just have to be there. But playoffs, I don't know. It's just... Yeah,
I'll be going again, and we will really see if my presence in that building is a curse. But we have one more game with my boys I'm going to go to, so I'll let you know.
Well, here's the thing. We got to find something on the schedule here where the Leafs play just an absolute bum squad because...
Anaheim's gone, right?
Yeah, Anaheim's done. That's that's where your head went first is because they're horrible.
I don't know how that coach is still there either, but let's not talk about Anaheim.
There are some horrific teams this year, but the Anaheim thing is especially bothersome because they're supposed to, every year it's always, they get hyped up as the team with all the young guns. It's supposed to be fun, but no, I actually had, because there was nothing else on and I just had it on as background because I have the, center ice package, but I had San Jose and the Devils on the other night. Just as I was going to bed, and it was just on TV. And I think San Jose gave up like 7 goals in the third period. Their coach called a timeout with 10 minutes left because they let in like 5 in a row. And I went, oof, this has got to be the worst thing to do as a professional
San Jose's an AHL club, though.
Yeah.
Anaheim actually has pieces. They're terribly coached. That's the problem.
All right. Well, actually, let's start with this then. Do you think that the Leafs are starting to get better coaching just in terms of what they like, the way that they're deploying the roster? Because you and I have been waiting for this all season long, just trying to find a way to get more depth amongst the lines.
Well, first off, that's exactly right. I like what Keefe's doing. This is what we've been asking him to do for 5 years now. 6 years. Get all the guys involved. Get your secondary offense guys involved. If you have to move a guy like Tavares off the PP to get a guy like Bertuzzi engaged, maybe get that secondary PP more minutes that gets a guy like Domi and extra offensive guys more engaged. These are things you need to do to win a Stanley Cup. If you're just going to hedge on your top guys to go play 2 minutes, 25 minutes, you might win a round. You might win 2 rounds in the playoffs, because this is what it's all about, the playoffs. You might win 2 rounds. But you can't hedge that your stars are going to go off and have all these goals and points and light up the power play 4 rounds in a row. You need other guys to be empowered to bring their best, create offense, feel good about themselves, handle the puck. Because if you think about it as a secondary offensive guy, if you're not touching the puck on the PP, if you're playing 10 to 12 minutes a night, 5-on-5, you might not even get good access to the puck to have it on your stick for a good amount of time anyways. So having that balance, seeing what he's done to deploy the lines, change up the lines. I still would like Domi to move down, maybe Camp to move up into that second hole, Domi to move to the wing, or, again, try to bring in a 3C that can help pump Tavares maybe back up or back down. You can get creative with that type of stuff, but I like the balance of the lines better. It's harder on stars, though, when they're playing less minutes. But as a coach, you just have to be up front. This is what we need to win a Stanley Cup. Tavares, you're going to go down to the third line. You're going to play 14, 15 minutes. These are big minutes where we need you. You're on the second PP now. This is the power play. We need you to carry. These are things that they're going to need to sacrifice in order to make this team win. And I've really liked what Keefe's done over that stretch.
So I had Dan Bylsma on about a week and a half ago, and he coached Bertuzzi for 3 seasons when he was in Detroit as an assistant. And I was asking him about him, and he basically brought up that he's a big-time feel-good, play-good guy, right?
Yeah.
And I love that they just found this Domi thing with him, because he and Domi seem to get along, and we've got some clips now of the two of them hanging out together. But on the ice, I actually feel like having Domi a little bit more involved and his personality gets to come out a little bit more. His attitude seems to have been a little infectious on the line with Nylander and with Bertuzzi. He's a setup man for both guys that score in different areas. I actually think that line works as long as you can accept they get pinned in their own end, and you've got Max Domi out there trying to get a puck out. I don't think I've ever seen a Leaf lose more board battles or turn more pucks over. It's tough. But the offense and the full, it's been better with those guys. It looks good with those guys. There's something to it. Like there's a synergy there.
Agree. I agree. There's a synergy, but if you're looking at playoff matchups, and if you're looking at that, so you're 2C, but if you're going to get other teams, they're going to throw their first line out in away games against Max. They're going to try to really challenge that top line or that line with their top offensive guys, because they're going to have their 3C, a top team like a Boston will have Coyle then come back out against Matthews, which leaves Tavares trying to score goals against their third or second line. So I just look at going into the playoffs, I would rather have Max on the wing. I'm not saying he can't slot in and play center at times when the team's down in a game and they need offense, but to start the game, I would really like to see it going forward after the trade deadline, if they could bring in a guy that could help solidify the center hole, that could move Max to the wing. And then again, you could keep Bertuzzi and Max together. Max can play as offside, and as a natural setup man, coming in on your offside is a lot easier to enter the zone and make plays from. So, and then it gets more creative where you can put Willie Nylander. Maybe he goes down to the third line and has to carry it. Now, it's not quite technically a third line, but now you have a lot more balance, and you have guys that can create offense against the other team's line, and you don't have to worry defensively in a playoff matchup. When that's what if I look at the Leafs matchup right now for their lineup, if I'm a coach, I'm hammering my top offensive guys against that Domi line, just strictly on playoff matchup. That's not saying Max can't handle it or those guys.
No,
but
I get it. Yeah,
that's just how I look at it. If you're trying to win a playoff round, and how much more coaching goes into the playoffs, how much more tactics, every shift matters, every face-off matters. So But all in all, what he's done so far, Keith, over that 7-game stretch when Riley gets hurt, guys get sick, forces him to play more guys and realize, hey, actually, these guys could play in the NHL too. Yeah, no, we've been telling you that the whole time. But now he's doing it, and I hope he doesn't go back to his old habits.
Same.
Which is a possibility.
Yep.
I hope he doesn't go back, because what's going on right now, the guys feel good about themselves, everyone feels involved, and then what it does is it bleeds into the room, the morale. Like I heard you talking about, the guys posting on Instagram or having fun with each other, and it's great. And yeah, you can do that when you're winning, but that's the type of morale you need all the time. You need that type all the time. So if it goes back to old habits, that stuff goes away.
So that's why I weirdly think tonight matters. Like, it's an Arizona team that, for whatever weird reason, has a lot of success when they come to Toronto. And if I'm them, you just don't want to have a weird egg laying or a weird bad beat tonight after 7 games, and all of a sudden you're looking at 2 losses in a row, and then it's the Rangers and then Boston, and it's a tough schedule ahead. I feel like they gotta keep the good vibes going here, buckle down, get a good win, and stay connected to that winning streak. Don't have it be as soon as you came home, all of a sudden things started to fall apart, and then you're doubting it. But what you talked about there, how they got other guys going, I give credit to Keefe, because he stuck with it and he didn't mess with the lines, and he hasn't so far gone back to the thing because things have been working. So I'm afraid of the same tendencies that you are. But part of it is that he fell into it with Tavares' illness or whatever is going on with him. You were there Tuesday night. He's on the ice. He makes a terrible play for what ended up kind of being the backbreaker goal, the third one, to close a period. No hard rim out, decides to try to, I don't even really know what he was thinking, but the puck ends up in the back of the Leafs net. It ends up on Karlsson's stick. He rips one between the 5-hole. It's 3-1, and the Leafs basically get put to bed. He never really shows a ton of frustration. He's down on that third line. They are finding creative ways to get him up with Marner and Matthews at times when there's offensive zone draws, but he's off power play 1. Did you see anything with him when you were there where you thought, hey, maybe he's not 100% still, maybe he's kind of fighting it? How are you supposed to interpret how he feels, even if it is in the goal of trying to win, about being taken off of a power play when this is someone where his entire career he's been a point-a-game player and a guy who produces on power plays?
Yeah, I don't know if it's illness. Like you said, if he missed a game or
it was a while ago now, though.
Yeah, but that's a while ago. I see it. What did we talk about when it would have been my last show 4 weeks ago? I still think it's a lack of confidence issue a bit. And then you get moved down to the third line, you get taken off the first power play unit. That is very big. If it is a lack of confidence issue, it is very big for the coaching staff to keep bumping, or like you said, putting him into good situations to score, bumping him up the lineup throughout the game, getting him out after PKs if he's needed, stuff like that to make him feel important, and then also make him feel now more important in his role that's lower down the lineup. So I still see more of a lack of confidence at the moment than maybe injury or illness. I could be wrong, but that's just seeing it in his game, just whipping the puck up the board, stuff like that, where maybe in those situations, he's one of the most patient players around. You couldn't not skate like him and have his career if you didn't have the patience and the confidence to make plays in all situations all over the ice. Because like I said, he's not the best skater. But that play where he just whips it up the boards, to me, is a bit of a panic play. It's a bit of a lack of confidence issue. And I'm not worried about him. I still think his game will come. Maybe he's setting into the new role at lower minutes because he's usually used to 19 minutes. Now it looks like he's at 14, 15 at times. That's a big minute hop down that you need to find your offensive game in. It is very hard to create offense consistently at 14, 15 minutes. But if that's what you're asked to do, that's a whole new game for him. You're not going to get the puck on the power play. You're not going to feel your touches on PP1 all the time. Then all of a sudden you get on PP2. If you're only out there for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, usually you're just trying to come in off the rush. It's harder to do it. It's not that it can't be done, but I just see Tavares being a lack of confidence. Now, maybe others know more than I do, but that's what I see.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because you mentioned the skating. It's why I always thought his game would age really well. Like, What he's going to get older, sure, and maybe he loses a little bit of a step. And some guys, it goes that way where they are already not fast, so when they lose a little bit extra, it becomes glaring. But with him, I don't see some drop off in terms of what he looks like as a player from a physical standpoint or from a speed standpoint. So I think that's a fair, at least theory to have, that it's a guy who's struggling maybe a little bit mentally with where he is going to be as a player soon, right? This is, again, he's been since what? Well, how long have we known about John Tavares here in this city? It was like John Ferguson Jr.
when I came in the league, but you guys know him longer.
But John Ferguson Jr. was trying to get him to sign a weird contract with the Marlies when he was like 16 years old and get him into the pipeline, and people applauded him. It was like his best move as GM was just making that attempt. But yeah, people have known about him as a stud since he was 15 years old in the GTA. And now he's, entering his mid-30s, and we're starting to, maybe he's just starting to have doubts. Maybe he's starting to wonder, he's like, man, I've had the confidence all along. I've been able to persevere through this, but all of a sudden they're taking me off the power play, and all of a sudden I'm down on the third line, and maybe it is.
Like contracts.
Yeah.
Contracts coming up. If you don't have your same point totals, is there more money at stake? Is there... there's a lot of things, and he's a professional, and he's going to play through it, but there's a lot of things that come into it, especially during the regular season, which personally I've been through. It is hard to put it in the back of your mind when you have to take a lesser role. You're not going to be in those situations. Then it's going to hurt your contract, but you have to do it for the team. Mm-hmm. And it's very hard to do that during the regular season. It's very easy to do that during the playoffs. It's almost like all that goes away once you get to the playoffs. You're like, okay, now I'm ready for the role. Or now I'm ready, and your confidence all of a sudden comes back. So maybe it's a little bit like that. There's outside noise, people asking why he's not scoring, why he's on the third line. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that go into it. Now, I've never been in this situation, but I have been asked for lesser roles going into playoff runs on contract years and stuff like that. So there's a lot that goes into it psychologically. But when you get to the playoffs, it's almost like, boom, I don't care if I got to play fourth line or 3 minutes. I'm going to block it with my face. So hopefully that's not the case, but it could be as well.
Well, here's the thing, though, and I've been workshopping this because there is kind of some clean way of saying it. But when Tavares first came here, he was supposed to be the savior, right? Everybody get on my back. We're going to go win a Stanley Cup. I'm going to carry all the young guys. And now it really seems to me that his legacy is going to be dependent on how much he sacrifices. Is he going to be willing to move to the wing at some point? Can he accept happily and dominate a third line center role, or lose those minutes on a power play, or lose those, 4 minutes of ice time, which is significant, like you just outlined? That's a lot of ice that you'd be losing. Can you sacrifice on the contract? Right? Shifts. Yeah. So if he ends up, to me anyways, sacrificing some of the role, dominating in a lesser role, sacrificing some of the money on his next contract, which is still more than a year away. Like, it's not this offseason, it's the following offseason. Yeah. But if he does that, and it allows the Leafs to shore up some other areas, and he's the one that basically takes on all the brunt of the savings that the other three guys wouldn't really give you, then, I think that his legacy in the city is going to be cemented as a great leader, as a great captain, as a beloved figure. Because, right now, I think it's one of, and I'm just saying from an overall standpoint, not that everybody's right, but I think a lot of fans feel like it was missed promise at this point.
Yeah, if you see him coming in and you see him sign for $11 million, you think he's going to get, especially at that time where the cap was at, you thought he was going to score 50 and 100 points.
Dude, his first season, him and Marner, they dominated. We thought they were the best line in hockey.
Yeah, but again, at $11 million, those expectations needed to stay year in, year out. Looking at John and just how he plays and the depth of the top, or if you look at Matthews is obviously a better player, and now you slot Matthews above John. If John goes to the 2C, which was the next year, that also takes situations away from you at times. That takes different matchups away from you at times. If Matthews is now scoring, now all of a sudden you're not relied upon as much at times. So there's John comes here, he gets put in obviously the 2C hole at a later date, and he starts to age. So you as a city expected 50 goals, 100 points every year. That's not what you're going to get from him. But what he's giving you has been incredible. And what he does continue to give you and the value he's going to add going into a playoff run, is going to be substantial, because if you look at the Stars, he's going to be the one of the four that will have to really sacrifice in order to make it happen and go down to a lesser role. I hope maybe at one point they do move Nylander down, like I said, to a 3-line to carry that throughout the playoffs, or a Marner down to the 3rd line to carry them throughout the playoffs. But that will take sacrifice and something that they've really never been asked.
That's kind of what they're doing now, though, with these three. That's why I like it. It's like, to me, you've got 3 lines, and it's the way that I think it works as of now. I think you make some really good points about Domi in the playoff series and how that's going to look versus, like, let's say they drew John Cooper and they play the Lightning again. I'm like, man, I would be nervous about the way John Cooper is going to try to take advantage of them, especially when they're playing games in Tampa. But overall, like, from what I've seen on this streak, the biggest point of impact outside of just their stars dominating, which is, the key to this team, and the power play clicking, it was something close to like 50% during the winning streak. It was like 48% on the power play, which is, you're going to have a lot of success when guys are clicking like that. But it's been, just getting to see a proof of concept of depth and guys in different roles and 3 different scoring lines that can take advantage of some other teams' weaknesses down their lineup. Okay, so you got any more Leafs thoughts that you want to get off, or can I move to some other things?
You move where you like.
Okay, yeah. So you were supposed to come on after Kane night. I was like pretty specific that I was like, that's your guy. You love him.
My guy.
Yeah, I know. You love the guy. He's like, a lot of players who played with Sidney Crosby, they're always like, they have got that bit, right? Thanks, Sid. Because they all got paid. That's you, but with Kane.
Well, I call my 2 Stanley Cup rings Kane and Taze.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. See, so you get it. That was such a cool night for hockey. I like for everything. Just everything was so perfectly done. It was. The kids like to say it was a movie, and that really was. That was a movie. Yep. That was a movie that night for hockey. Incredible, incredible, incredible stuff. But it did. Okay. So Chelios gives him the "you're the best U.S.-born player" thing, right? And that carries a lot of weight. And I don't think anybody would fight that right now. As of today, if you're trying to fight it, it's pretty crazy. That's more a sign of just the times in terms of the way that we move things quickly along. That being said, Matthews might score 70 goals this year. And there's a lot of, hey, this guy might actually be the greatest goal scorer of all time buzz already. Ovechkin struggling again. I don't know if I was going to hit the Gretzky number, by the way. Like, it's starting to get that team stinks. He can't be when he's on the ice. It's dash, dash, dash. But anyway,
he's going to have to work out in the off season again.
Oof, yeah. Like, it's not. You can't just go get whatever the cocktail is over in Russia. It's got to be more. It's got to be more than that. But do you think it? Okay, I brought this up with you before. I know it pissed off your Blackhawks teams that the Leafs, as soon as they put the young talent together, it was immediately, hey, these guys are the new Blackhawks, right? Because and it's not just you have talked to about this. Like, it's been Sharp has come on this pod and mentioned it and was like making fun of them when it first happened. Like, there's been other guys that noticed the comparisons and were a little put off by the fact that they had won a bunch and succeeded a bunch, and then their guys got paid after all the success versus the Leafs, the way that their model worked. But do you think that there's like a little bit of an added piss off for Kane that, he gets dubbed the greatest American-born player, and we're almost already doing the thing with Matthews of, well, he's not for long.
Now, it's not shocking that we're in Toronto and we're talking like this, but let's go back to Kane night just 1 second.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
That night, like, even before it started, I was sitting on the couch. I told my wife, he's going to score the winner. He lives for the biggest moments, and him coming back to Chicago is a massive moment, especially in Chicago sports history. And going into overtime, they tied it up, and I told her, look, he's going to score the overtime winner, I swear. And when he got that breakaway pass, I screamed, come on, and then all of a sudden he scores, and I cheered. And she's like, shut up, you're going to wake the kids. You're going to wake the kids. I went nuts. He is, hands down, without a doubt, no one's even close. Joe Sakic, I don't care, Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne Gretzky's the best player of all time, no doubt. If I haven't said that he wasn't, my dad would come here and kick me in the face. He is the most clutch player who plays for the biggest moments of all time, and it is not even close. I have played playoff series where he is setting up goals, scoring goals, cup-winning goals. he is so clutch, and he lives for the biggest games, the biggest moments, and there is nobody close to Patrick Kane. Now we're talking about Matthews. Matthews, without a doubt, will destroy the goal-scoring record for American-born players. And I love Matthews. He's my top 3 favorite players in the league. I love him. Obviously, my kid loves him. Love watching him, everything he does. I am still a true believer. You have to win a Stanley Cup to be dubbed the greatest.
Of course.
To be dubbed the greatest, whether it's Canadian, American, Slovakian, whatever it is, you have to win a championship, because playing hockey in the playoffs is the ultimate. You have to come through when it matters the most, and you need a championship. So maybe in 10 years, if Matthews gets that championship, 100%, I would for sure say he'd probably be the greatest player of all time based on stats and goals and whatever it may be. But because he is the most clutch player and he comes through in the playoffs year after year and in big moments, game after game, without a doubt, Patrick Kane is the greatest. And I hope this drives Matthews to win a Stanley Cup. I hope this is what he understands is needed from him for his legacy, because legacy for these players is everything, and Patrick Kane has cemented his legacy, but he is, without a doubt, again, the most clutch player of all time. He is the best American-born player, and again, I call my first-ring Kane, or second-ring Kane, first-ring Taves, but without both of those guys and how they play in the playoffs, none of that would have been possible, and that is what Matthews will need to do forever in order to be dubbed the greatest American player of all time over Patrick Kane.
No question. And, you talk about Patrick Kane being the most clutch guy. Matthews in 4 Game 7s so far has 1 assist, and he's a -3. He has 2 assists, and he's a -3. No goals.
I can go through so many moments, like overtime goal Minnesota, Game 4 to end it. Game 6 goal Stanley Cup Finals. Sets up Seabrook Game 7 against Nashville to score the game winner in Game 7. Like, you could just go through so many big goals. Scores a shorthanded goal when we're down 3-2 with 30 seconds left against Nashville to go up 3-2 instead of going down 3-2. We go back to Nashville. He gets another goal in Game 6. Like, it's just wild. It's wild what he does in the playoffs, and I judge so much off the playoffs.
Yeah, of course.
I judge so much just because I know how hard it is to win, and I've seen the best players play the biggest in the biggest moments. I know I'm pumping Kaner up, but it's crazy. Again, Game 2 scores the game-clinching goal, Game 6, the second goal against Tampa Bay in Game 6 to win the Stanley Cup. It's mind-blowing. He also set up the game winner that game, assisted. He's got 2 points on 2 cup-winning goals. Or 3, I think, 2 or 3. It's crazy what he's done. So yeah, you're right. That's what Matthews will need to do. He has the ability. I would love to see him do it.
Totally agree. It's a conversation for when Matthews wins. He certainly at least needs more playoff success than 1 playoff round. He's got a long career that's going to be ahead of him. I just think it was funny that we had this comparison between Leafs and Kane, Leafs and Hawks, and then basically a couple of years later, once there was some real separation from it, we're back. We're back before Kane's career.
And I remember that too, because it was when those guys came in 2015, and then Matthews drafted 2016, and the Hawks kind of finished their dynasty, and it's like, wow, we got Marner, who's like Kane, and Matthews, who's a bit like Taves, but and then they start to look at the defense. Is Morgan Riley, Duncan Keith? I'm like, Duncan Keith's a Hall of Famer, like one of the best defensemen of all time to ever play the game. And then you had Brian Campbell and Brent Seabrook, and then our third line had like Andrew Ladd and Dustin Byfuglien. Like the lineup was loaded. So we always kind of laughed at it, but they did have the pieces to do it. It's just they had to build underneath those guys, and then when they took all the salary on, it made it impossible.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's just like the greatest players win. Like you go through the history of hockey, and I mention this all the time, but I think that the best 2 players who never won were Marcel Dion and Eric Lindros. Like, those are the 2 at their very peak top guys, go through it historically. Everybody else, they ended up winning. Ovechkin, that was why it was so huge for him. And him and Sidney Crosby getting theirs like during the cap era really makes things tougher for a lot of these guys too. The big one in terms of the shift for the way we view hockey, in terms of the all-time greats, I think, is going to be what happens with McDavid's career. I think he's going to win, but I've been watching more Oilers games lately, and they are back to just, they're kind of thank God for Zach Hyman.
What a player. What a player.
He's so good. It's infuriating because the Leafs decided that they would rather pay Nick Ritchie and Alex Kerfoot than give him a contract that year. Thanks, Dubas. That was a great one. That was a really good decision.
They thought he was done after that knee injury.
Yeah, they thought that it was the contract wasn't going to be all right, that it was going to really fall apart. And now it's like he's been so good already through the first 3 years of the deal that it's like, who even cares about the rest? He's their heartbeat. It hurts me. Anyway, it's awful. But that Oilers team, all of a sudden, they're not getting saves the same way. They were just, I watched the game last night. It was white knuckle against the Blues, and it's been a lot of that lately from them. But anyways, if he doesn't end up winning.
They can't trust Skinner. They can't trust Skinner.
But they can't trust so much of that team. Like, they need more depth. It's the same stuff. They went on that winning streak, and they beat a bunch of tomato cans, and everyone went, oh, my God, they're incredible because they were getting some stops. But ultimately, the roster still feels flawed, incomplete, and it's just a lot of McDavid. But he's so incredible. Like, every single time all I want to do is watch him play hockey because he's so different from everybody else. But if he was to not win, which I think is at least on the table. Like, I think he'll win, but there's a possibility he goes throughout his career. He doesn't get it done during his prime. Years go by, and I don't know about them this year because, again, I don't trust the goalie in the playoffs, and I don't think they're it. If he was to not win a Stanley Cup, then it would just change everything in terms of all of the future conversations of sports and the all-time greats, because you'd be able to point to him and go, well, he didn't. And so you go, yeah, I guess.
It's a Dan Marino thing, essentially. Yeah. It'd be very close to that. And I think that's why Dan's never been able to be considered a top three quarterback. But I picked the Oilers to win this year. I'm standing by it. They need another centerman at the lower depth. They need another defenseman. I know they're talking during the winning streak. Their 6 D-men love each other. So what? Go out and get another better D. They need another better D-man, and they need another goalie that can go in when Skinner's not good. And Skinner is a good 1B, but he ain't a 1A. So, yeah, those talks are going to get more complicated as, more teams start to enter the league over the next decade. The cap era, like you said, it's harder to win in the cap era, and a lot of better players in today's game won't end up winning Stanley Cups due to just the amount of teams. So, yeah, those conversations will end up starting to change. But for the most part, people want the championship.
Yeah, they need it.
Anoint the greatest of the greats.
No question. All right, quickly, though, before you go. One is, you played with Jágr in Calgary because he played with everybody, because he played forever. Did you get to know him a little bit? You have a Jágr story?
Yeah, I had hip surgery, and he was hurt with his knee at that time, and that's when they had the potatoes on the knees and everything. Okay. And I remember I got to the rink at like 8 a.m. for rehab, and then I go in there, and he's sitting on the squat rack, and he's doing single legs, or on the leg press. He's doing single leg press with his right leg, and he's just sitting there on his phone, and then an hour goes by, and he's still sitting there, and he's doing the other leg. He literally sat on the leg press, I kid you not, for 3 hours. And I'm like, how many sets did you do? And he's like, well, I did about 15, 20 sets. But it was just, he just sat there on the leg press for 3 hours. I'm like, is he just like, so for most of us, do we do a workout in 2 hours and we hit the leg press for 10 minutes? Does he do like 12-hour workouts and just slows it down? And I'm like, wow, this is science. If he has nothing to do all day except stay at home, he might as well stay in the gym and do a 12-hour workout, which could have took us 2 hours. So I was like, wow, he's really onto something. No wonder why his longevity holds up, because he's not hammering his body in 2 hours. He's doing it slowly over 12 hours. It was something to be seen, but getting to know him as a person too, just a great guy, great teammate, and someone that, I loved watching back in the day on all the Rock'em Sock'ems and his highlights and his goals for Pittsburgh, and then, coming into the league and getting to play against him. He really is he's got an aura around him almost. It's like there's like a presence when he walks into the room, and all the guys start looking at him when he's on your team. You're like, oh my gosh, that's Jaromír Jágr. It was something, I guess, that I'll always remember. And I remember his first game in Calgary, we did actually get a play on the same line. So it was, I got the picture of the game sheet and the lineup, and it was a special moment for me. But to be able to be around him and, see that presence was really neat.
See, that's cool. Getting to play on a line with Jaromír Jágr. That's how special a player he is. That is, you had a long career too. You won 2 Stanley Cups, and it's like you made sure that you kept that game sheet,
I took a picture, kept it. Oh, yeah, it was the coolest thing.
That's what I mean. And that was actually the year, remember there was like the traveling Jágrs?
Traveling Jágrs.
Yeah, they would. I forgot about that the Calgary fans, those were good. That's the good thing about Canadian markets is people get it. You know, the fans, they get it. They're like, we got Jágr on our team. We're gonna dress up like him and have a squad of the boys that all follow around and watch his games. Yeah, it's something when there's only like it's a pretty short list of players, right? Where like you mentioned, where you feel, how many years were you into your career at that point?
That was my 11th year.
That's what I mean. So in your 11th year, there's nobody that you're getting starstruck or you're like, oh my God, and except a guy like that. Where it's like,
well, it happened in my first ever NHL game. I was playing against Calgary, and I lined up against Jaromír Jágr. And growing up in southern Alberta, like Iggy is God.
Yeah.
Like I was 17 years old when they went to that championship, like going nuts, you know, in 2004. And then I got drafted right after that, but to Boston. But lining up to Iggy, I remember lining up. I'm like, holy! And then he gave me a cross check right off the face-off. I'm like, I better stop. I better stop. You know, idolizing this guy, or I'm going to wind up dead on the ice. So, but those are the two real times in my life where I was just like, wow, this is. Well, there's probably 4 or 5, but you're right. Like when I saw Wayne Gretzky was another one. Met him in the elevator one time, and that was the same thing. I was speechless. And Steve Yzerman's the other, but it is a short list.
And the Iginla run that year too, because we're
wild.
The best individual run in my life in terms of, it was like, okay, Pronger on the Oilers in terms of just the way he just carried that team. There's been goalies like Jágr, right? Like
and all the overtime goals by Jelena.
Yeah, that was crazy. But it was just the fact that every series was the same in terms of Iginla was going to dominate, but then he was going to beat someone's ass, right? Like it was like he was doing it all. It was the complete like, okay,
going to dominate. Growing up in southern Alberta with like that type of tough mindset of the, the farmers, he was every farmer had a Iginla jersey hanging on their tractor.
I know, that's it. Yeah. He was the perfect player at the perfect time on that perfect run. And always, I think it was Leopold that hit that post against Tampa. And it's like, man, God, if that would just gone in.
And then Jelena tipped it, and it looked like it was in game 6.
Yeah, that was a painful one. I never root for the Canadian teams. It's actually usually my biggest fear. Like, don't let another Canadian team win before the Leafs. Like, please, no. But that Flames run is the only time where I was like, I love this team too much. I don't know how everybody in Canada wasn't just like completely behind him, because it was like depth guys and Iginla dominating, and then him just going in, kicking the crap out of somebody.
It was awesome.
Okay, so before you leave, so explain, because again, you are the creator of the KLEVR app, and we tell people all the time on the show to go and download it and go and check it out. But what is, like, I keep seeing, you're putting in the function of being able to run practices through your AI, and it looks pretty advanced.
Yeah, so Coach Kai's the new AI system in our app. So you could go in there, and if you're a new parent to sport, you could ask Coach Kai a question about, hey, how do I hold a tennis racket? Or, hey, how do I hold a stick? Or, hey, do you have 3 drills for inside edge work or outside edge work? So it's a real neat little coaching system that's been put into KLEVR that's going to help give answers to parents that maybe they haven't known before, or new parents to new sports that can ask Coach Kai questions, and then even coaches that can ask questions about, hey, what's more drills, or what are you thinking here? So it's a real cool little tool that we've added into KLEVR. Obviously, KLEVR, we've streamlined video coaching with your tablet phone. That's what we do better than anyone. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this new Coach Kai function is a real cool little AI function that you can go in and ask questions, and it's out now on KLEVR.
Yeah, so for those interested, it's KLEVR. And it's available to download for free in wherever you get your apps. Hey, buddy, always great. Thanks for coming on.
Yep, you take care.
See you, bud. Kris Versteeg, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, creator of the KLEVR app, which, again, coaching young kids, coaching at any level, really. This thing, it's very, very popular.